We are back with an alarming new report that's shedding light on the rise of anti-Semitism in the U.S. According to the Anti-Defamation League's annual audit, the number of anti-Semitic incidents has gone up by 140% since 2022. The nearly 9,000 incidents reported in 2023 include harassment, vandalism, assault, as well as bomb threats. We're going to dig into this now. Here on set with us is Anti-Defamation League CEO and National Director Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on set and shedding light on this important report. So really some startling numbers here. Tell us what we are seeing in this dramatic spike in numbers. How much of a surprise, or maybe not a surprise, it was to you? What did you make of this?
Well, I don't know that it's a surprise, but it's still just staggering. So the ADL has been tracking anti-Semitic incidents for 45 years. We get reports from law enforcement, we get reports from victims, and we investigate and verify everything that we publish. And we've watched these numbers after being low for decades. Starting in 2016, they began to tick up and then really surge. And last year was the highest year that we've ever seen. Now, what's important to note, though, it's the fourth time in the past 5 years that we've broken a record.
Wow.
And yet, whereas 22 was the highest before, 23, with 8,873 acts of hate, that is 140% greater than the prior year. That is literally almost 900% greater than a decade ago. So something is definitely happening.
Obviously, we know at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, beginning of October, was when the Israel-Hamas war began.
Yeah.
How much of a spike do you think is related to that? Did you see anything? Can you tell definitively from October to December? And then what do you think that sets us up for as we are still watching that unravel this year?
It's really quite nerve-wracking. So again, while these hostages are still being held in Gaza, while civilians are still being killed on both sides, starting on October the 7th, we saw 5,200 and change incidents between October the 7th and the end of the year. That alone, Savannah, would be more than any single year we've ever tracked. So again, I would just point out, you could have frustration about what's happening in the Middle East, but to hold American Jews collectively responsible for policies you don't like of the Israeli government, that's as wrong as, say, holding Asian Americans responsible for what Beijing did on COVID-19, or holding any other minority responsible for what happens around the world.
As we've watched what's unfolded in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas, how do you think American Jewish people feel about expressing their concerns over anti-Semitism? Has it made it
It's a good question.
easier, or has it made it scarier?
I think it's made it scarier. I think, I spent the day at Harvard Law School on Thursday, and these are the best of the best. And to hear their stories, feeling abandoned by their former friends, feeling alienated from much of the mainstream in the school, and really feeling alone, because whereas again, they used to be part of that school in every single way, and they still are certainly enrolled students there, but they have continually been isolated and marginalized by the sort of pro-Hamas crowd at the school and the administration. They don't feel supported. So it'll be interesting, because today, as you likely know, Columbia President Shafiq is testifying before Congress. There's been a lot of issues on these college campuses. We've seen a massive spike in anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist incidents on colleges and universities. That's why ADL released a report card just last week assessing these schools. It'll be interesting to see what happens today on Capitol Hill.
How is the Anti-Defamation League addressing what they're seeing? What can be done?
Well, look, I think at ADL, we think, you got to do all you can to fight hate. Number one, we need our leaders to lead. Elected officials, public personalities, call out hate when it happens, unequivocally, and call it out to whom it happens. So if anti-Semitism happens, call that out, period. Number two, we're pushing a new campaign we call 50 States Against Hate. President Biden launched a national strategy to fight anti-Semitism last year. We want governors now to do the same. And then finally, back to campuses. We really think it's important that the campuses simply enforce their own policies. Like, again, frustration about what's happening in Gaza isn't an excuse to spit on Jewish students, isn't an excuse to vandalize the Hillel, isn't an excuse to harangue and intimidate your classmates. And when that happens, college presidents should, apply the rules and enforce consequences on people who violate them.
Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you very much for coming by to tell us more about this report. We really appreciate your time. Important stuff.